Hey, it's Sam Hashem with Flat Fee Landlord. Today's video is going to be about whether you should rent your house furnished or unfurnished. I'm going to talk about what the pros and cons of doing it and ultimately let you decide what's best for your situation. Okay, so there's got to be a few things that we got to figure out to understand which option is best for you. I'm going to start off with having the home furnished first and go over some key points on that. Stuff that's gonna benefit you and things that you could also see as a factor in terms of making you want to think twice about doing it. So some pros about having a furnished rental is, one, you don't have to deal with what's in the house. Everything that you have in there, if you're willing or able to leave behind, such as your couches, your major appliances, your beds, your everything that's in there right now, minus your own personal belongings, of course, you would just leave in the house. And then what would happen is we would go ahead and market your house to be able to advertise it to people who are looking for that specific need. A furnished home, something to not have that tenant go out and spend a lot of money to get the house ready for their living needs, and just essentially move in ready, and they use it, they're out. Very simple. Another major benefit of having a furnished rental is going to be the amount of income you can produce off of it. If you do provide it furnished, chances are that you will get a much higher premium for having the home furnished, just because, again, the tenant doesn't have to go out and buy anything, so they're willing to pay that extra amount just to be able to have something that's move-in ready for them. Now, some factors that may have you reconsider doing a furnished rental is going to be the following. With a furnished rental, you do have a lot more of a higher turnover rate, meaning that you don't have any sort of consistency in your income. You have maybe a tenant who, again, is looking for a furnished rental, could be from some sort of corporate relocation, short-term contract for their job, or even some sort of insurance thing where something happened to their house and they just need temporary living to be able to hold themselves over until their house is ready, or, like I said, their contract expires. So it kind of leaves the homeowner in a more of a risk to have more vacant months, just because, again, it's nothing long term that a furnished rental attracts. It's more of a shorter term lease. The other downside of having a furnished lease is going to be the amount of turnover cost that goes into the house and just overall expenses. So looking at a short-term rental, you're going to be looking at most likely a new tenant possibly 2 to 3 times in 1 year. And each time you do that, if you decide to find your own tenant, great, it shouldn't be that big of an issue for you. However, if you decide to go with a property manager who, unfortunately doesn't work for free, they're most likely going to charge you something to find a tenant each time that your home becomes vacant, which means more money coming out of your pocket and expenses throughout a 12-month lease term. So you're going to be seeing a lot more turnover costs just on tenant, not only the tenant placement side, but also when it comes to the maintenance of your home. So things such as paint, cleaning, just overall cleanliness and maintenance being taken care of. That's things to consider, because, again, somebody who is not going to be there long term, in short intervals, it's going to put your home at a lot more risk to have more money put back into it, just because of the constant traffic of moving in and out. Okay, so next I want to talk about having an unfurnished rental. I'm going to talk about the good and the bad about that, of course starting with the bad. So with an unfurnished rental, what's going to happen is a few things. You're going to fall into a market that's going to be a lot more competitive, because your overall market is most likely going to be looking for a 12-month or longer lease, a longer term lease. You're not going to have too many people who, at least on one street, that are offering a fully furnished house, just because it's not as common. However, with that being said, it's going to not allow you to make that extra premium as you would having a furnished rental versus a non-furnished rental. Another thing is that with an unfurnished rental, again, you're probably going to attract a longer term renter. So what that's going to do is most likely tie up your investment, your money, for a 12, 24, whatever the lease term ends up being for that amount of time. So if you ever were looking to sell, you're going to be limited in terms of how you can sell the house if you really need to. So that's one thing to consider. If you're going to do a unfurnished rental, get a long-term tenant in there. Then if you have any plans within the next year or two to try to sell the house, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, an upside of having an unfurnished rental is going to be the type of lease that you're going to be able to land. Now, if this home is a long-term investment for you, this may be the route that you want to consider. The reason I say that is because when you do an unfurnished rental, the majority of people that are out looking at houses are usually looking for an unfurnished rental. Just because where they're living at now, they most likely have everything they need to fill up a house that's probably going to be pretty comparable to yours. So with that being said, they just will simply just move from one house to the other and not have to worry about any sort of personal items of yours left behind the house and figuring out where they need to put things. So that is going to be one upside to it, where you're just going to be open to a much bigger market to be able to get your house rented. One other thing that you also want to consider is with an unfurnished rental, getting that long-term lease is going to be very critical for you to live a much more comfortable life. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be who's going to pay your mortgage for you for the next 12, 24, 36 months, whatever it is. So having the unfurnished rental is going to allow you to basically find that person to do that for you. So if you don't have any plans of selling your house within the next 5 years minimum, I'd say you may want to go the unfurnished route so they can lock in a long-term renter, have somebody either pay that mortgage or a significant portion of it for you and help you out with the cash flow for the upcoming years. Hey, so those are my thoughts on having an unfurnished rental versus a furnished rental. Of course, I'm more than happy to discuss more in depth and ask you more questions to actually figure out what the best option is for you. I just wanted to make a quick video since, again, I've heard this question multiple times this week. I just wanted to put something out there to kind of help you guys out if that's where you're at. So again, feel free to call me at any time at the office. Number is here, and I'm available, and let's discuss and see how I can help you out. Thanks a lot.